So I really talked about really quick before we go on with anything else. And that is the free report, FREEH, of the current situations between Joe Paterno and the Penn State University. Not just Joe Paterno, but Jerry Sandusky. Let me see here right quick, because there's a few more names I am probably forgetting. I apologize, but Mr. Sandusky, Mr. John Curley, I think John Curley, but Mears, Spaniels, Schultz, Paterno, and Curley. And people probably know those names just right off the bat, because they've been talking about it all that day on SportsCenter. But more importantly, Louis Friedman, one of the top law firms, one of the top lawyers, one of the top people running law firms in general, a very respectable source, and a very respectable man as well, for what he did, just in a lot of cases in general. It's just a very remarkable name to be doing this case. But from the bullet points, I'm not going to go into full of everything, because it's, like, again, it's on SportsCenter all fucking day at this point. And I'll just go through some of the few bullet points that struck me as somebody. Because, let me just go down. Because, let's see here. The Board of Trustees did not have regular reporting procedures or committee structures to ensure disclosure of major risks of the university, such as the Jerry Sandusky stuff. Some trustees felt the meetings were a rubber stamp process of Mr. Spaniel's actions. The board did not independently ask for more information or accesses of under-reporting by Spaniel about the Sandusky investigation in May 2011, and thereby failing to oversee properly of his executing management of the worst crisis in Penn State's history. The board was overconfident in Mr. Spaniel's abilities to handle crises and unprepared to deal with. The filing of criminal charges against senior university leaders and a prominent former football coach of 2011, and the firing of Joe Paterno, as well as several charges that could have been on Jerry Sandusky, including an investigation of the same issue in 1998, where this was happening at the same time. This was a major cover-up revealed. And that's just a few, and there's much more broader points on SportsCenter, including Joe Paterno not doing a thing about this. In my mind, the late Joe Paterno could have done something to solve this. To the point where you are like, okay, we have a problem here, but we're going to do it the following Monday. Not the weekend of, not the day of, but the following week. And that itself is disgraceful. You have these kids not only being raped, sexually abused, possibly in the showers or not, or anywhere in the major buildings around Penn State. It is disgraceful that this would happen. And not only did the Board of Trustees didn't do a damn thing about it, but neither did the Paterno, neither did the lobby, because, one, it would ruin the reputation of Joe Paterno and the legacy of Penn State. Two, we do not want to do criminal charges because, well, let's face it, in the middle of a season, depending on when these happened, in the middle of a football season, in the meeting of just practice, training, anything, maybe even finals for these kids. And shit like this is going on in one of the biggest buildings in Penn State, not only for football, but the offices of Jerry Sandusky and Joe Paterno were right next to each other. So they could have done something to even fix this. And over, several documents. Thousands and thousands of documents, as well as millions and millions of emails about the whole just abuse, Jerry Sandusky in general, Sullivan, Paterno, and several others, because just it shocks me that, well, I mean, we knew it to begin with, that there was some form of cover-up. And, of course, grand juries, of course, board of trustees, everything. Everyone was involved at some point. And, of course, last month, Mr. Sandusky was found guilty on trial of 45 of 48 counts of his sexual abuse and other things of that nature. One thing I don't understand is you have 45 of 48 counts. What happened to the other fucking 3 counts? What happened to those? Why don't you just tag those on there for the hell of it? Because sure, Sandusky had something wrong to do, because Sandusky's child victims were mostly senior leaders of Penn State, the most powerful men in Penn State, even presidents, even board members, maybe even daughters and sons, cousins of board members. And it's disgraceful that not only through the counsel of Mears, Curley, and Schultz, it stated that the human thing to do in 2001 was carefully and responsibly assess the best ways to handle vague but troubling allegations. And even Mr. Paterno said, I didn't know exactly how to handle it, and I was afraid to do something that might jeopardize what the university procedure was, so I backed away and turned it over before some people I thought would have a more expertise than I did. And let's face it, Joe Paterno was one of the most powerful people in Penn State, let alone as a non-controversial. He's a controversial figure now, but one of the biggest people that made a pillar for college sports, a pillar, a legacy that is now tarnished, that is now destroyed. And to be honest with this whole thing, I think I remember recently, maybe a few hours ago, that Penn State officials were going to move the statue of Joe Paterno, an image in sports, not college sports, but sports in general, would have destroyed, is now destroyed, but an image that was amazing. Back in the day, people legalized Penn State Joe Paterno into college football, much like Pat Summitt for women's basketball. And we all know how with Pat Summitt recently with the Alzheimer's having to retire as one of the most winningly coaches of all time. That's hard to say 3 times fast. But just along with Sandusky's child abuse from the authorities, the Board of Trustees, the Penn State community, and publics at large, the fact that anything would have happened to those children, that destroys an entire